I filed for divorce the day after he gambled away our son's college fund. Those were the exact words Allison whispered when the lawyer asked her why. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. Her voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. But inside, she was burning. It had started as a normal Saturday. Thomas made pancakes. Their son, Ethan, ran around the house in his Batman pajamas. And for a moment, everything looked fine. But that's the thing with moments. They don't last. That afternoon, Allison found the letter. It was crumpled inside Thomas's jacket pocket. A debt notice from a casino in Atlantic City. $45,000. Allison's hands trembled as she read it. She reread it, again and again. Then she opened the laptop, checked Ethan's college savings account. The one they had been building since the day he was born. 0. Not a single cent left. Her breath caught. Her chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped her heart out with an ice-cold spoon. She waited in silence until Thomas came home. And when he did, she didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She simply asked, "Where's the money, Thomas?" And that's when everything shattered. He started lying, small, pathetic lies that fell apart with every word. First he said it was a mistake. Then he said it was temporary. Then he blamed her. "You never trust me. You always make me feel small," he said, eyes darting, voice cracking. Allison just stood there, silent, still, watching the man she once loved unravel like cheap thread. And then came the final blow. "I was going to win it all back," he said. "For us. For Ethan." That's when something in her broke. For Ethan? She looked him in the eye, and in that moment, she saw the truth. He didn't do it for Ethan. He didn't do it for her. He did it for himself. For the rush. For the escape. For the lie he told himself. That one more bet would fix everything. But some bets cost too much. That night, Allison packed a bag. Just one. She took Ethan and drove to her sister's house across town. She didn't tell Thomas. She didn't leave a note. He called, dozens of times. She didn't answer. The next morning she filed the papers, not for revenge, not out of anger, but for survival. She couldn't let her son grow up learning that love meant broken promises, or that family meant fear and failure. Thomas had crossed a line, and once you cross it, there's no going back. What kind of father gambles away his child's future? What kind of man looks into his wife's eyes and lies so easily? Thomas had made his choice, and so had she. The lawyer nodded slowly as Allison explained everything. "Do you feel safe now?" he asked. Allison paused, then said softly, "I do now." But feeling safe didn't mean feeling whole. The scars were fresh, the wounds invisible but deep. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, curled up beside her with his stuffed tiger, Allison stared at the ceiling. The house was quiet, too quiet, and in that silence, she grieved. Not just for the marriage, but for the years she had wasted trying to fix a man who never wanted to be fixed. Thomas wasn't evil, but he was weak. And weakness, when left unchecked, becomes destruction. The days after Allison filed for divorce moved slowly, like wading through thick, cold water. She and Ethan stayed at her sister Megan's house, a small brick home in Annapolis, with sun-faded curtains and a squeaky front porch swing. Megan didn't ask questions. She just hugged her and said, "I've got you." Allison clung to that, because even the strongest people need someone to hold them when they fall. Ethan, only 7, didn't understand much. He just knew Daddy wasn't there anymore, and Mommy cried more often than before. At night, he would tiptoe into her bed, wrapping his little arms around her like he was the one protecting her. Sometimes, it felt like he was. In the daylight, Allison tried to smile. She made pancakes, colored with Ethan, even read his favorite space book twice in one sitting. But inside, she was unraveling. She thought about the man she married, the way Thomas used to kiss her forehead when she was stressed, the silly voices he'd use during bedtime stories, the way he danced like a fool in the kitchen while cooking dinner. Where had that man gone? Had he ever really been there? Or had she just imagined him into existence? Money had always been tight. They weren't rich, but they got by. Until Thomas started staying out late, taking business trips, making vague excuses that didn't quite add up. She had asked him months ago, "Are you gambling again?" He swore he wasn't, and she wanted to believe him. Because when you love someone, denial can feel safer than truth. But now the truth was everywhere. In the empty bank account, in the unpaid bills, in the look on Ethan's face when he asked, "When is Daddy coming home?" Allison didn't know how to answer that, because sometimes there is no answer. She started working part-time again, helping at a local bakery downtown. It wasn't glamorous, but it helped. And it reminded her. She still had worth. She still had strength. Megan watched Ethan during the day, picking him up from school, helping with homework, tucking him in when Allison worked late. They became a small, stitched-together family. Not perfect, but real. And real was enough for now. Thomas didn't take the divorce well. He sent texts, long ones, apologies, promises, pleas, some angry, some desperate, all of them too late. Allison didn't respond. One afternoon he showed up at Megan's house, knocked on the door like nothing had happened. Allison opened it. He looked thinner, eyes bloodshot, breath laced with something sharp. Whiskey, maybe. Allison, he whispered, like her name. Still belonged to him, but it didn't. "What are you doing here?" she asked, standing firm in the doorway. "I need to talk, please." "I made a mistake. I'm getting help now. Therapy, meetings, all of it." She wanted to believe him. A tiny part of her always would. But belief wasn't enough anymore. "Ethan's inside," she said, her voice cold. "He doesn't need to see you like this." Thomas's jaw clenched. "I'm his father. And I'm his mother," she snapped. "The one who didn't gamble away his future." That hit hard. Thomas stepped back like he'd been slapped. "I didn't mean to ruin everything," he murmured. "But you did," she said. "You ruined you. And we got caught in the crossfire." A long silence stretched between them. The wind stirred the leaves around their feet. Finally, she spoke again. "If you really want to help Ethan, leave us alone." Thomas didn't argue. He just nodded, turned, and walked down the steps. His shoulders hunched, his steps heavy. That was the last time Allison saw him. A week later, his number was disconnected. A month later, she got a letter. From a small town in West Virginia. No return address, just a folded note. It read, "I'm sorry. I love him. I hope someday he'll understand. Take care of him. Better than I did. Thomas." No signature, just those few broken words. Allison read it once, then tore it in half, and threw it away. Grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, like the way Allison stared at Ethan's shoes by the door every night, knowing they used to sit beside a second pair, Thomas's muddy boots. Other times, it was sharp, like the way her chest ached when Ethan made a drawing at school, a picture of his family with a dad-shaped scribble floating just outside the house. When she asked him why he drew it like that, Ethan said, "That's Daddy, but he's far away now." She nodded, held it together until bedtime, then cried into her pillow. Grief doesn't go away all at once. It peels off slowly, layer by painful layer. But so does strength. It was a rainy Thursday when Allison realized something had changed inside her. She was walking home from work, coat soaked, shoes splashing through puddles. The bakery had been slammed all day, her back ached, her hair was a mess. But when she passed by a cafe window, she caught her reflection and stopped. She looked tired, worn down, but still standing, still moving. And just like that, she smiled, not because she was happy, but because, for the first time in a long time, she felt alive. At home, Ethan was waiting on the couch with a bowl of cereal and a crumpled blanket. Megan was helping him build a Lego tower taller than her wine glass. "Mom," he shouted, "we made a spaceship that can land on the moon." Allison bent down, kissed his forehead. "You are my little astronaut." She looked at him, really looked. And in that moment, she didn't see what she'd lost. She saw what she still had, and what she was fighting for. From then on, her days became quieter, but steadier. She found rhythm in the mornings, routine in the chaos, lunches packed, homework checked, bills paid, even if it meant saying no to that new coat in the store window. Sometimes she still heard Thomas's voice in her head, especially late at night. But his voice faded more and more, replaced by Ethan's laughter echoing through the halls, and the sound of her own breath, steady and strong. She was healing. Not perfectly, not quickly, but piece by piece. It had been almost a year. No calls, no visits, no birthday card for Ethan. Thomas had vanished, the way gamblers sometimes do when they've lost everything. Allison didn't know where he was living. She had no clue if he'd found work, if he'd ever gotten sober. She stopped checking, but Ethan hadn't. One night, as they sat on the back porch watching fireflies blink across the summer yard, Ethan turned to her and asked, "Do you think Daddy misses me?" The question hit her like a punch to the heart. She looked at him, small hands wrapped around his juice box, bare feet swinging off the porch step. She took a breath, then said softly, "I think your daddy loved you very much. But sometimes, even people who love us don't know how to stay." Ethan thought about that, nodded slowly. Then he said something she didn't expect. "I hope he's okay." And somehow, that broke her more than any of the tears or tantrums, because her son still carried hope, even when it hadn't been given back to him. A few nights later, Allison sat at the kitchen table after Ethan was asleep. The lamp hummed softly. The house was still. She reached for a piece of paper and started to write. But it wasn't a letter to Thomas. It was a letter to herself. She wrote everything she had never said out loud. All the guilt, the confusion, the fear, the shame she carried for loving someone who'd failed her. And when she finished, she folded the paper, sealed it in an envelope, and burned it in the sink. The flames licked the paper until it turned black, then gray, then gone. She watched the ashes drift upward, and felt something in her chest lighten. The letter would never come from Thomas. And maybe that was okay, because closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you decide to take. The first snowfall of the season came early that year. Flakes drifted down like whispers, soft and slow, dusting the sidewalks of Annapolis in a quiet white. Allison stood by the window, cradling a mug of tea between her palms, watching Ethan play in the yard. He was bundled up in a too-big coat, making clumsy snow angels, his laughter floating through the glass like a song from another world. He was happy. He was safe. And that was everything. But something inside her still felt unfinished. Not broken, not raw, just waiting. Like she had left a page unturned, a breath unspoken. That feeling lingered. Until one morning, a letter arrived. But this time, it wasn't from Thomas. It was from the courthouse, finalized. The divorce was officially over. No contest, no claims, no shared custody. Sole parental rights. Allison M. Cooper. She stared at the paper for a long time, fingers trembling slightly. She wasn't surprised. Thomas hadn't responded to any of the filings, hadn't sent a lawyer, hadn't fought for visitation, not even a phone call. Just silence. Cold. Wide. Absolute. Part of her had hoped, maybe, he'd come to his senses. Try to be a father. Try to be a man. But he didn't. Thomas disappeared the way a storm does. Loud, violent, destructive. And then suddenly gone. No explanation. No repair. And that absence became permanent. Rumors floated in. Through Megan's husband. Through old co-workers. Through mutual friends they no longer spoke to. Someone said Thomas had moved to a small town in Ohio. Another claimed West Virginia. One person swore he saw him working at a gas station off the interstate, looking thinner, rougher, older. No one knew for sure. Allison didn't chase the truth. She let it drift. What mattered was the life she had now, and the boy who still called her mom in the middle of the night when the thunder got too loud. One evening, near Christmas, Ethan asked if he could write a letter to Santa. Allison smiled and said yes, already imagining him asking for Legos or a telescope. But when she peeked at the letter later that night, her heart cracked in two. Dear Santa, I know I already asked for a dinosaur robot, but can you also help my dad not be sad anymore? I think he forgot how to love us. Maybe you can remind him, but if you can't, it's okay. Mom takes care of me now, and I love her the most. Ethan. She pressed the letter to her chest, tears slipping down her cheeks. There were no answers to give her son, no fairy tale ending, just the truth. That sometimes people leave, sometimes they break promises and disappear, and sometimes all you can do is survive the silence they leave behind. Years passed. Ethan grew. Taller, stronger, wiser than his years. He stopped asking about Thomas eventually. Stopped waiting. Stopped hoping. He still carried a quiet sadness, a father-shaped space in his heart. But he also carried pride in who his mother was, in the strength she gave him, in the life they built together from the rubble. Allison never heard from Thomas again. No calls, no birthdays, no high school graduation, no wedding, no grandkids, just an endless echoing silence. But it didn't hurt anymore. It just was. Like a scar, a reminder that love is not always enough, but choosing to stay, to fight, to protect what matters most, that is love's truest form. And that's what she gave Ethan. Every single day. The years rolled on like a tide, steady, inevitable, washing away the sharp edges of what once was. Ethan turned 12, then 16, then 18. Each year his smile looked more like hers. He got into college, a full scholarship, nothing to do with the fund his father lost, and everything to do with his own brilliance, and the woman who raised him to believe he was capable of anything. They moved once, from Megan's place, to a small townhouse just outside Baltimore, cozy, quiet, filled with warmth, a home they had built together, one piece at a time, with laughter and love layered over old wounds. Allison kept working. She saved. She planned. She kept showing up. Even on the days she didn't feel strong, she was. And Ethan? He never lost his light. He grew into a young man with soft eyes and a fierce heart. He volunteered. He taught music to kids at a community center. He held doors open for strangers. He called his mother every Sunday without fail. He still never heard from Thomas. No phone call, no apology, not even a postcard. It was as if his father had been a ghost all along, a flicker in memory, a voice in dreams, a name whispered less and less with each passing season. And one day, Allison realized she couldn't remember the sound of Thomas's laugh. It didn't make her sad. It made her free. Years later, on a quiet spring morning, Allison stood alone on her back porch, coffee in hand, sunlight warming her face. She was older now, lines around her eyes, silver in her hair. But there was peace in her chest, the kind that only comes after walking through fire and surviving it. She watched the wind move through the trees, the leaves dancing like they remembered something beautiful. And in that stillness, she thought about everything that had happened, everything that had broken, and everything she had built. She didn't get the storybook ending, but she got something better. She got the truth, the strength, the healing, the life. Because sometimes the people who walk away are the ones who were never meant to stay. And sometimes the ones who are left behind are the ones who rise. And if this story moved you, or even made you think, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone. And this story is a work of fiction. All characters, names, and situations are entirely made up and are not based on real individuals. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental.